For this video, you find me with the 2022 Toyota Corolla Hatchback XSE. This is finished in the two-tone blue flame with a midnight black metallic roof. This has a 2.0-liter naturally aspirated four-cylinder engine, cranking out 168 horsepower and 151 pound-feet of torque. And it's connected to a lovely 6-speed manual transmission, and it can be yours for about $25,000. And in this video, I want to share with you my likes and dislikes about this hatchback so that you have a better idea before you buy. And make sure you hit that like, subscribe, and that notification bell so that I can keep sitting here on the passenger side and walking you through some of the cars that you can buy today. Now, with this Corolla hatchback, after this one, I've now driven all of the Corolla models, and you can see all those reviews on this channel. I've driven the sedan, the hybrid version, and now the hatchback. Which one is my favorite? I'll tell you later. Now, this hatchback is the one to get if you're looking for the most utility in a Corolla. These Corollas are small, compact cars, so you shouldn't expect lots of room for rear passengers and cargo space. In fact, the hatchback sacrifices almost 5 inches of legroom in favor of a more usable cargo space. This has 17.8 cubic feet of space as opposed to the sedan's 13.1. Now, the front and rear seats are nice. This XSE trim is finished in this two-tone cloth and leather upholstery. This looks more upscale than Corolla's base cloth offerings. I've reviewed the SE Apex Edition before, and that had cloth seats, and it screamed budget car. But this XSE hatchback looks more presentable and classy. Compared to the competition like the Mazda 3 hatchback, the Volkswagen Golf, the Honda Civic, and the Hyundai Elantra, this Corolla hatchback isn't as big, but this is still a very practical car to own. Fold the back seats down and the cargo expands to a more usable space. When you open the hatch, the opening is nice and low so you can easily fit items in. I personally drive a Veloster N where the hatch opening is fairly small. This Corolla hatchback is more user-friendly. And when you sit inside, the hatchback has a nice seating position, the visibility is very good, and all the controls are within easy reach, which is another benefit of these small and narrow cars. The 8-inch touchscreen infotainment system is standard Toyota Entune. It certainly feels aged by 2022 standards, but I won't complain too much about it because it is simple and intuitive to use. There is also Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, which is what I would normally use anyway. Toyota has a new infotainment system that they're rolling out. The first vehicle that has it is their new Toyota Tundra, and you can check out my first look video up here. That new infotainment system is very good, and I imagine it will be a while before we see those systems for their other cars. So for now, we'll have to depend on this pixelated display. Another piece of disappointment with this screen is that since this screen is used on a lot of Toyota products, it comes by default with this map button here, but there is no built-in navigation in this car, so when you press that button, all you get is this message. Looking ahead, the instrument cluster looks more high-tech and crisp compared to the infotainment display. You can find this 7-inch digital screen if you go with this XSE trim. The SE and the SE Nightshade will have a traditional gauge display instead. Now, for the rest of the interior, the Corolla has a very sparse feel to it. There's large swaths of flat surfaces, and it gives off a minimalist and clean feel. But it can also remind you of the budget nature of the Corolla. The transmission tunnel is very simple. There are switches for the heated seats. And back here, there's the IMT button. More on that later. There's the traction control button. Here's your 6-speed manual transmission, your parking brake, the brake hold, and some cup holders. And I like how the placement of these cup holders doesn't interfere with your shifting too much. In my Veloster N, if I have a tall drink in the front cup holder, my wrist will run into the drink if I'm shifting gears. But not in the case of this Corolla hatchback because this manual transmission is pretty tall. The shift knob is placed high up, and which isn't a bad thing considering the short distance that your hand has to travel between holding the steering wheel and the manual transmission. It kind of gives it that slight racy feel. So the throws are long, but I like how it feels precise. There's a good mechanical click as you get into each gear. It doesn't feel spongy or rubbery. And because the throws are long, the shifting effort is also pretty low. And it's really easy to tell what gear you're in. Now to make shifting a bit easier, there's this IMT button, which stands for Intelligent Manual Transmission. That's basically your rev matching feature. Now for you manual transmission experts, you can just leave that button off, but for those that want to learn this disappearing art of rowing your own gears, this will make things a bit easier. In addition, the clutch is very light and forgiving. It can be a bit vague, which isn't great for performance driving, but it is very easy to drive. Now, if you've been thinking about learning how to drive a manual, this is an easy car to learn on. And if you're deciding whether to go with the continuously variable transmission, the CVT, or this manual transmission, I strongly urge you to check out the manual transmission. Not only is it $1,100 cheaper, but it is also more fun and interesting to drive. I love ringing this Corolla hatchback around twisty back roads. And the lightweight nature of this car and the small size and small wheelbase makes it so much fun to toss around. The steering also feels really nice and responsive, and having to manually change gears on top of that makes you feel much more engaged and one with the car. Overall, a pretty fun car to drive for $25,000. But if you want to maximize efficiency, you should go with the CVT option. Yes, it's more expensive, but it will return better gas mileage. With CVTs, the automatic transmission can optimize for the right gear ratio so that the engine can operate most efficiently. The downside is that it can feel less responsive, especially when you're accelerating from a dead stop. The difference between Toyota CVT and other brands is that Toyota's CVT has a fixed first gear so that it'll help you launch off the line a little bit better. Bottom line is, if you're shopping for a car with a continuously variable transmission, you should try it out and compare for yourself because it does make a difference. Lastly, let's talk about looks, because this Corolla is giving me all kinds of mixed emotions. First of all, the black on blue. The blue paint on this thing is nice. It really stands out amongst the crowd, and that will help considering how many Corollas are still on the road today. Personally, I would skip the $500 two-tone option and just go with the all-blue paint. The two-tone paint just diminishes the hatchback aspect, which is a design that I love. I think hatchbacks are some of the coolest car designs. It exudes a fun-to-drive look and feel, while also reminding you that the car can actually fit things. The Corolla hatchback hits all those design marks, and I like the way it looks. It has a proper 5 doors, nice 18-inch wheels. It even has a cool little spoiler. The front end of the Corolla has a pretty neat design that reminds me of Toyota's other cars, like the Camry, the CHR, and the Sienna. But I wish that Toyota would give the option of the sedan's front bumper. I like the sedan's more squarish and sporty presentation, like in the SE Apex Edition. But the worst part of this hatchback's design is at the back. Dual exhaust tips? Nah. How about pieces of fake chrome plastic? Sign me up. I hate it when cars do this. It looks goofy and cheap. It looks as cheap as buying fake plastic vents from AutoZone and sticking it on the side of your car. But one bonus to this fake exhaust is that it looks like Toyota has made this piece removable. So if you have some aftermarket exhaust, you can still show it off without cutting off any plastic. And there's some modified Corolla hatchbacks out there with quad exhaust tips, and it looks gorgeous. So to summarize, this XSE Corolla hatchback is a fun-to-drive small car that's affordable, utilitarian, and also returns pretty good gas mileage. It's not the biggest hatchback, however, so if you're shopping for maximum cargo space or rear legroom, you're better off going somewhere else. And one more thing, if you're considering it, there's no all-wheel drive option for the Corolla hatchback, or any Corollas for that matter. Now, to answer my earlier question, which one is my favorite Corolla? It's not this hatchback. It's the sedan Apex Edition. That was such a fun car to drive. That had the manual transmission. It had nice flow-formed gloss black wheels, stiffer and lower suspension, and it also had some nice cosmetic upgrades. If you're interested in a review of that car or the hybrid version of the Corolla, please check out the links in the description box. With that said, I want to thank you so much for watching all the way till the end. If you've learned something, please consider hitting that like button. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe and that notification bell so that you can be notified anytime we make a new video. Let's wrap it up right there. My name's Hanson. This has been the 2022 Toyota Corolla Hatchback in XSE trim, and I'll see you next time.